Well, hello, and we are back talking about Christmas in July 24-hour live streamathon. And we have a little bit of a special edition for you right now. I am bringing on a very special guest. Not only is she a childhood, lifelong dear friend, kind of related through family, but she is somebody that I admire, have tremendous respect for. And if you want to know what perseverance, resilience, strength, and faith looks like, just look at this one coming on next. So we have Teresa joining us, and she is co-founder of Java. I will let her tell you more about that. I don't want to share anything about her story because it needs to come directly from her. And trust me, you want to tune in. She will also be on this coming weekend during the streamathon, but tonight we are giving her extra time to share her story because she has a message that needs to be reached around the globe. All right, so here we go. Hello, Teresa. Let's pull us up here. How are you, beautiful?
Hello. I'm well. Thank you.
It's so great to have you here. But not only that, I mean, you've been here from Streamathon number 1, number 2, and here we are, number 3. And it's been amazing to watch the impact that you are making and how much it's grown and the reason behind it
Yes.
all. All right. So I'm going to just give you full screen. And if we get comments or if a question pops up, I'm going to like hop up here and we'll go through it. But this time is yours to
Okay.
truly get your message out. And this will stream again over the weekend and reach a global impact. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, hello, everyone out there watching this amazing streamathon that Elena has put together. She has put so much time and hard work into it, and I am just so honored to be a part of that and included in this today. So, again, my name is Teresa Dularet, and I am a mother first and foremost. I have a daughter that just graduated the nursing program, and so she's on doing wonderful things. And then I have a son who has passed away. He's transitioned to heaven, and that's who I'll talk primarily about today. His name is Chris. And I also have 4 grandchildren that range in the ages from 3 years old to almost 12. And so that is where I spend a lot of my free time. I am also one of the founding leaders of a local advocacy group that we call Java. And Java stands for Justice, Accountability, and Victim Advocacy. So it's a 501c3, and we formed in 2018. And the reason we formed was because the members of leadership at that time, we were all impacted, our families were impacted by a homicide in our community. And so we just didn't really know what that was going to look like initially. We knew there was a need. We just didn't know. We didn't see that it would take us as far as it is today. So again, supporting families of homicide. Further on, later in the year of 2018, we started supporting families of missing persons. We had never had experience or exposure to anyone that had gone missing, but a post caught my attention on Facebook from a complete stranger. And we got together as a group, and I said, guys, we've got to help this grandma find her missing grandson. And so we didn't know, again, what that was going to look like. And so we formed search parties, and we just started walking alongside of this family who, again, since 2018, Kevin Wynn is still missing to this day, and he is yet to be found. So that family is still hurting. So again, supporting these families in prayer, listening to them, which is primarily what they want the most, somebody to listen and to have their voices heard. So fast forward to May of 2020, the tables drastically turned, and I got the call that my son was not okay. And on that particular day, it was on May the 12th, and that date is forever etched in my heart. That particular day is when I found my son unresponsive. I administered CPR and was how the EMTs just kind of take over the care at that point. They did regain a pulse. I was very hopeful that he was in the absolute best hands possible. Again, it was during COVID, so things were just really weird at that time. I was not able to accompany him to the hospital, but I just was sent home to just wait by the phone and wait for the call. About an hour later, the call came, and it was the chaplain. And everyone knows that when the chaplain calls, it's rarely good news. And the chaplain informed me that my son did not make it. And I had a house full of people. And at that point, in that moment, is when I entered this giant fog of disbelief. And it's when my grief process initially started. I was given the opportunity to go to the hospital and say my goodbyes, which again, I would not wish those minutes and moments on anyone. It's very difficult, and immediately having to make some really difficult decisions. When you lose someone very close to you, you're not prepared for some of the initial decisions, the questions, the thoughts. The whole process is hard, and that's what the Java team helps families with. We kind of help them get through those initial first moments, and they allow us in, and we just kind of walk alongside with them. And when it was me, and I was the one that was in need of support and prayers, it's kind of like time stopped. And if it wouldn't have been for my personal support that I had in my home at that time, I don't know that I would have survived. And I don't know that I would have been able to make the impact and be the person that I am today without that solid support system that I had. And so since that, May 12th of 2020, that dreadful day, so much has happened. I wasn't sure. One of the first questions that someone asks when a loved one passes away, it doesn't come from a place of disrespect. I think generally people just want to know. People that care about you, they want to know what happened. How did the loved one pass away? What was it? A car accident? So many questions. And those questions, although I have the same questions too, when I see that someone young at the age of 23 passes away, I want to know too. But out of respect for the family, I hold my questions. So I didn't know. My answer to those questions was I didn't know. I thought my son passed from a medical emergency. I just was not sure. And I did not want to label him until I got all of the necessary paperwork back, the autopsy and the toxicology report and all of those things that you read and you really still don't understand, even when you have them in your possession. So when I read the toxicology report and talking to the coroner, on that report was a medication that I was just not familiar with. He had passed away. He had 10 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in his system. And again, that brought so many questions. What is that? My son wasn't prescribed fentanyl. My son, to my knowledge, I didn't think he knew what that was. And again, that led to so many more questions. That led to a conversation with a couple individuals that I now call my very close friends to this day, just to get some answers. I was a mama on a mission, just trying to make it make sense to myself. And I thought, if this happened to my son, surely I'm not the only one. So I needed to go and search to find others like me.
Yeah, I have to just ask a question real quick because I'm listening and I want to give you full screen time. But when you said 10 times the legal dose of fentanyl in your system, I didn't even know that there was like a level that was considered legal, like
Lethal.
or lethal.
Lethal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that was I was like, wow, I never even realized. I thought just like a trace of it was like that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So okay.
In
Wow.
most cases, yes, it just takes like the equivalent to a grain of salt to claim someone's life. But yes, when the toxicology was done, he had 10 times the lethal dose in his system. And fast forward and learning all the things that I've learned since that day, there's so many things that maybe could have changed his outcome. One of them being this little
Here, I'm gonna give you
thing
full
right here.
screen again so you.
Okay. This little thing right here, for your viewers that aren't familiar, Narcan. Narcan is something that can be administered. You can carry this in your purse. It can be administered and kind of stop the receptors in the brain, and it kind of brings that individual back that has overdosed on opioids essentially. And again, not knowing what that was at the time, I didn't have it on me. Now I carry it in my purse. I carry some in my car. I vacation travel with it. It goes with me everywhere I go. But as far as fentanyl itself, there's a medical grade fentanyl, and then there's illicit fentanyl or synthetic fentanyl. The fentanyl that we see on the street is not medical grade. It is a derivative that comes directly from China. And I won't get too far into the weeds of the political side of things, but I've learned a lot in that front as well. Our open border crisis, that just China flooding our country with these lethal drugs and these derivatives. They're just making their way into all of the states and all of our neighborhoods and into the hands of our kids in all forms of street drugs. Fentanyl is found in marijuana. It's found in heroin, meth. One of the most concerning places where it's found is local gas stations. I've talked to families who have experienced overdoses in their family with vaping. So the same vape cartridges that you would purchase at the gas station have been known to have traces of fentanyl and have been known to contribute to death. And so vaping has become such a popular thing, especially with our youth, that is very concerning, that someone can go to the gas station and legally purchase something and unknowingly have trace amounts of something that will kill them. So that's been very eye-opening for me. And again, in my search to find answers and to find other like individuals, and surely my son wasn't the only one, I went to Facebook and I found groups where, because nobody was talking about fentanyl. Now it's a household name. You hear about it on the news literally every day. People are talking about it every day. In 2020, that was not the case. So I started just reading and researching and linking up with other families that have experienced the same type of loss that I have. Because the thing about loss, and the thing about when you go to support someone that has endured a loss, unless it's coming from someone who is walking the same journey, who is lost in the same way as you have, the support just is different. I know it has good intentions. Anybody can support someone that has lost a loved one, but something very special is born from the relationships formed by those who have experienced the same loss. Because we've got the same questions. There's so many, most of our questions will forever go unanswered. we all want to know, how did our kids get how did they get their hands on something so lethal? Did they know that what they were about to ingest was going to claim their life? All of these questions. I wholeheartedly believe that my son never, I tell people, our kids are supposed to learn from their mistakes, not die from them. And I've gotten in several debates on Facebook about individuals that have that stigma, that perception of, well, they make a choice and they just have to, if it claimed their lives, that's the choice they made. My son did make a choice that day, and I will never deny that piece of it. But at the same time, my son would have never put me in that predicament to find him. He would never have he had a son. His son was 1 year old. He would have never, his son was the happiest thing about his whole life, and he would have never put himself in a position where he was no longer here. So again, all of these moms that I've connected with over the years, we just had our 4-year angelversary, which again, I can't even believe that it's been 4 years. It's gone by so fast, but then at the same time, it's gone by so slow. Because there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him or talk about him or do some sort of advocacy with other families that are in the same situation.
And I put the quote that you just said, our kids are supposed to learn from their mistakes, not die from them. And, a couple things when you had said about, the way someone passes, unless you've been through it, right? Because even though I suffered loss from my husband, which is kind of why the Christmas Widow started, there's no way I can fully comprehend what you've gone through. Mm-hmm. And I think you nailed it, because surrounding yourself with community that has gone through it the way you have, at least similar circumstances, at least something that has to play a huge role in truly feeling supported, truly feeling supported and like someone gets it, because that death, I like to describe it as, in that moment, everybody chimes in and like, oh gosh, life is so short. Oh my gosh, this, oh my gosh. And then the next day they're back to their lives and you're left having to figure everything out brand new again. So the community that you've created that at least supports in that way, it's awesome that you found communities of other parents that lost their children to this fentanyl drug, that they can have those same questions and have that support. So I just want to say that that's so important that be out there for parents that have gone through this for their children.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even just grief in general. I can support families who have been, well, at the time when I was doing advocacy with homicide families, I was so unequipped, not knowing how unequipped I was to talk to those families. I never would have said anything like, I understand, or I know what you're going through. Those are words that you just don't say to someone unless you've experienced the same type of loss. But still unequipped in a sense that I could still go home to my kids at night. Those parents could not. So even though I was equipped to pray with them and support them to a specific capacity, there was a limit there. And until those tables turned and I was the one that was in need of support, so much clicked in those moments, because I understood the things that parents would say to me over the years. It's like everything started to make sense. I felt more connected to those moms who have had to bury their children. I just felt some sort of unity with them. And now I consider the majority of the individuals that I talk to anymore from day to day were once strangers until I lost my son. So majority of my connections now are just those that are walking the same journey.
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. because I have found as well, just through different experiences, that people want strangers from all around our family,
Yeah.
like just family. It's hard to be able to put that into words, but you can make these connections that are strong as like the strongest bond based on those common experiences, and at one point they were strangers, you
Yeah.
know.
I
Mhm.
mean, I tell people all the time that the one sole single thing that is good that has come out of my grief, and I speak personally, the one good thing is the relationships and the connections that I've built with other families that just feel the same way I do.
Mhm. So I know over the years, I remember, I think it was the very first year that we did Christmas in July, you were on your way to Washington, D.C. for, I think it was like one of the first
Yeah.
type of uh, discussions or rallies or something on fentanyl. What has it done to you to see how much this has grown because it has taken so many lives? You know, because I do remember when Chris, um, passed away. It was all new. It was like what is this? And now it's kind of sad that it is a common thing that you hear, but how has it been for you to see the growth and been part of that journey of really pushing for change around this?
Yes. Well, the first year that, again, when I was in my deep dive in Facebook to try to find other families, I found a group called Lost Voices of Fentanyl. And they're the ones that held the rally. And I was able to fly out to Washington, D.C. to the very first annual rally that they held. And at that time, the rally was held in front of the Chinese embassy to make a statement to China, basically, like, we know that you're killing our kids, and again, not to get political, but that was so eye-opening for me because I was still in a place where it was still fresh. It was just months after my son passed away, and I just, again, was the sponge trying to absorb anything I could. And being there in Washington, D.C., and just expecting, like, oh my gosh, this is such a great thing that these families are doing. And how is it that they can get up here and talk about their loss? And I can't even get through a conversation without crying. And I want to be strong like them. And I just want to learn and educate too. And so I thought it's going to be all over the news. Even though I'm in DC, it's going to be everywhere. People are going to people are going to start to talk about this. It was not covered by a single media outlet that year. So fast forward to the second year. Again, this is an annual rally. Their rally actually just happened this last week. I was not able to attend this most recent rally, but I did go the second year. And during the second year is when, I'm more woke than I was the first year. And I'm paying more attention. And now it's more focused on, okay, what are the laws? What are other states doing? What can be done? What have we tried? What's not successful, in this? So that was my goal the second year that I went. And just how God works. I was contacted by, I'm in Indiana, just like you are, at least I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
um,
still.
Indiana. Okay. So I wanted to talk to legislature, and our congressman's office reached out to me before my second rally, and they wanted to know if I would be willing to come and share Chris's story in front of Congress at the round table. And could I fly out to Washington to do that? And I said, well, that's interesting because I'm going to be in Washington already. I'm going to this second annual rally in DC. And so the way it worked, we scheduled it all around the same time. And so I was able to share Chris's story and my testimony in front of Congress, just to make sure that they were aware that this is taking lives. And look at all of these beautiful faces that are no longer here. All of these military aged children, all of these individuals that are usually the ones to hold certain jobs in our community, and they're no longer here. There's an entire generation that is starting to be absent all around us, all across the nation. So I wanted to make sure that my voice was heard. And it was such an honor to have, to be able to share my son's story in that capacity. But at the same time, it made an impact, not only in the other congressmen. Other congressmen were present, and they also invited parents from their states. And again, the unity, and just what a great thing to be able to openly talk about it, and in front of people that can make a difference. That second rally, it was not at the Chinese embassy. We actually marched to the White House, and we stood out in front of the White House and made a statement there. Again, very little attention. One of the things that I took away from that second rally was one of the other moms had collected obituaries from all of everybody that would submit an obituary. She had this big giant box, and it was full of all of those little pamphlets that we each get from the funeral. And the box was full. And her request was to Congress, deliver this to the president, make him understand that these are our kids, something needs to be done about it.
Wow.
To this day, I can share that we are still waiting on a response from the Biden administration, and just an acknowledgement that, yes, we hear you. That has not come yet. None of us are giving up hope, because we know, our army is building. Help is not coming, and the way it's coming is in the form of parents. We care enough. We're the ones that are carrying that torch. We're the ones that are pushing our congressmen and our local officials to make the change necessary to stop and put an end. And I realize that, people have said, well, if it's not fentanyl, it's going to be something else. And there is something else. There's something else more potent than the drug that took my son's life. And the Narcan that I showed earlier, that stronger drug, one of them, the name is xylazine. It does not reverse the effects of the overdose, unfortunately. And you can have multiple doses of Narcan, and it will not bring the individual back. So there are other stronger, more potent drugs floating around out here. But at the end of the day, they're still getting into our country. They're still making their way into the hands of our children, and that is what needs to stop.
And for those that are tuning in that might not know, like, how can someone get that Narcan to have in their car, in their bag, on vacations? Like what does somebody need to do to get that? Is there a certain process that needs to happen, or what does that look like?
Well, you can get them online. Overdose Lifeline is one of the organizations that will mail you some doses of Narcan. Fort Wayne, Indiana, my hometown, is very fortunate in we have several non-for-profit groups that we're just on a mission, and we are locking arms, and we're on this mission together. We have dispensers of Narcan at our local hospitals, just as if you'd go to a dispensing machine to get a Coke. You can get free Narcan. We've got other non-for-profit groups here in town that will deliver Narcan to your home. So we have made it very accessible. There's an open prescription at the pharmacies in Indiana where you don't need to have a prescription per se to obtain Narcan if that's the avenue that you need. Like, anybody can get their hands on it. It's all funding driven, and I would imagine the funding eventually, just like everything, will go away over time. But the overdoses in our community, I monitor the stats from year to year. And when you compare the overdose fatality rates compared to the non-overdose rates, the stats have improved. It's not because the drugs are no longer circulating. It's because we are doing a good job at making sure that the Narcan is in every household. And I tell people, like, we hope that you don't need a fire extinguisher, but it's recommended that every house has one. Narcan is the same way. You, just like I said, I vacation with it. I may be on the beach somewhere and I see someone that is maybe overdosing. The thing about Narcan is it will not damage the individual. If it's not an opioid overdose that individual is struggling from, you can administer the Narcan and it will not hurt that individual. No damaging effects from that Narcan. But if it is an opioid, it will assist and give you enough time for the EMT responders to arrive and to take over and to hopefully save that individual's life.
That is great information. And being that this is going to air during the actual streamathon, I want to talk about Chris. Here I go. Like, I want you, number one, to share that bit of hope for maybe the parent that it's raw, maybe the parent that is just now absorbing that they have lost their child, and give that little bit of hope, because believe it or not, you are an inspiration. But this is all about pouring love and light in the world, and Chris was love and light. And so I want you to just talk on your son for a little bit while I'm over here. So.
Well, this isn't my most favorite picture, but it's the picture that I have, and there's a glare, but he was a big baseball fan. It's the picture that sits next to me while I work all day. And it just reminds me, he's kind of looking off into the sky, and it just reminds me of just everything that he was. I mean, in his 23 years of living, being a single parent, I poured my everything into my two children. And if somebody would have told me years ago that I would lose one, I don't know. My response at that time would have been, take me too, because there is not a day that I could go on without one of my children. I mean, they are my reason for living. Chris was just an amazing guy. Of course, all parents are going to say that, but my son truly was. He was amazing to me, and having him at a young age. I was about 23 myself when I had him, but we kind of grew up together. But I realized I was a boy mom. He showed me things that I realized that I loved. His love for sports, his just enthusiasm, his character. He was just a funny guy, and just people always say about their kids, they were the life of they light up a room when they walk into the room. He truly did, and we had such a great relationship, such a close bond. There's times where he would turn down hanging out with friends because I'm hanging out with my mom, and every day he would come home and we would talk. And, I'm sure there was a lot of things that he didn't tell me, but there were also a lot of things that he did share with me, and he confided in me. And he was such a great friend to those that trusted him and confided in him. And he was the straight cat guy, the guy that if he had a friend that was in need, he would bring them home, talk to my mom. My mom will know what to do. And those are the things I miss the most. I miss just his love that he had for me. Again, I shared earlier that he was a father. My grandson is, thanks to God, a replica of my son. says the same things, mannerisms the same, plays baseball. And I mean, as he's swinging that bat, he didn't get to play baseball this year because he broke his leg, but swinging his bat, he'll look over at me and he'll be like, just like Daddy. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're just like Daddy, and you have no idea. And I've got pictures all over my house of my son, and it sparks conversation where I don't know that I'll ever take those pictures down, because it gets my grandson an opportunity to know how special. In all of these pictures, it's the 3 giant collages that we had at his funeral. And it's pictures of everybody that loved him and all these different gatherings and different things that we had celebrated over time. And so my grandson asks questions. And, there's this one picture in particular where my son was my grandson's age, and he's holding these incredible Hulk gloves. And I found the same gloves at the store, and of course I have to buy them. And he ran over to that picture, and he was like talking to his dad, and he's like, look, Daddy, I've got the same gloves as you. And he's posing like him, like looking at the picture, studying it, and trying to do the best he can. That's what I'm left with. And it's such a gift, because I count that as a blessing, because not all parents have that gift, and I treasure it always, because he, like I said, there's so many things that he does that is just like set from above. Like there's no way, we'll even be at the grocery store, and this happened early on when my son very first passed, where even looking at cereal, and my son's like, I want that one, that's Daddy's favorite. You passed away when he was 1. There is no way you would know what your daddy's favorite, but lo and behold, it was Daddy's favorite. So we picked it up, and it's now his favorite. Like things like that. I'm just like, it's God driven all the way.
It's his spirit. His spirit is here. His spirit is watching over his son. So he was 1 then when he passed away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's almost 6 now.
Yeah, and that's where I say, like, how you started out saying it's gone fast, but at the same time, it's gone slow. Like it's amazing to me, that especially when you look at the children and how much they've grown. It just shows you that many years, that's gone by. What can we do today to support? What is something that maybe we don't know that we can actually do that will make a difference? Is it attending, I know you've done the angel, what did you call it? The every year you do the balloon, is there like an angel?
We have a Black Balloon Day. Basically all the days that I didn't know existed. There's Black Balloon Day. There's Empty Chair Day. We hold locally, in addition to that Washington, D.C. rally, we hold local rallies. We hold 2 rallies a year. I've partnered with a group called APPALLED, which stands for Association of People Against Lethal Drugs. And we formed a local Fort Wayne, Indiana chapter of APPALLED. And I guess to your viewers, one of the things is, let's help drop the stigma surrounding overdose, the stigma surrounding addiction. And let's be honest and learn more about how mental health plays a factor, a huge factor in addiction. Addiction is not a choice. Addiction is a disease. And just getting that out there will help these families there's families that are offended. There's families that don't use the term overdose. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it is what it is to me. A lot of them prefer fentanyl poisoning, which again, it's that too. So words that you use, be very careful. Not all individuals that pass away to fentanyl suffer from addiction. Some experimented one time. Some maybe got past that one time, liked how they felt, and formed an addiction very fast.
Yeah.
Mental health and trauma plays a big part because our kids now, especially with isolation and COVID and everything that kids have to deal with nowadays. When you and I were growing up, we didn't have a lot of these negative forces around us. These kids have a lot of weight on their shoulders that they're carrying. And I feel like, something as easy as listening to them. The kids are experiencing loss at record numbers. I think that's what led to my son and his passing, because he experienced loss of friends that had passed to suicide and car crashes. And, so the addictions that are formed, I don't know, there's still a lot of stigma.
Yeah.
So to your viewers, like help end that stigma.
Yeah, that's huge. And I was actually going to ask, like, have you seen how the younger kids, 20s, in that age bracket, because it has to be impacting them to see their peers dying, and
Yes.
and it's like it would just it's a I would wonder, like, what does that conversation look like? What is that doing for them? Like, is it helping them push them out, or is it putting them in a darker place? Like, and I'm sure it's not a blanket response. Everyone's got to deal with things their own way, but for that for those seeing their friends this happening, and then you're dealt with, well, I was there too, why am I still living? Like, just all kinds of emotions have to be going on all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I support families who there's a lot of survivor guilt among their peers. There's families where maybe two individuals decided to split a pill. One passed away, one lived. So that individual that lived will forever carry that trauma. There's individuals, coming from their peers. I actually just joined the board of another local nonprofit organization that's called For Lake's Sake, and they are getting into the schools. They are educating the kids, and they've got a whole curriculum for the youth, and they're just trying to flood the community with resources for the kids. And again, quite frankly, overdoses are happening in middle schools here in town. I would imagine it's across all the nation, happening in high schools. You don't hear about it on the news. The school systems don't want that information to get out, but it is happening. So I'm really honored to be working with that group, just to kind of help. What can we do to kind of get in front of this at an earlier age? My son was 23. There's kids in middle school that are dying as well.
Wow.
But peer-led support groups is important. Kids they're not going to listen to 50-year-old me tell them, but they might listen to their friend who is out there advocating and maybe also struggling with their own addictions and now are in recovery. And so they're able to share their story, and kids listen to kids, they listen to peers. So yeah, one of the other things that you can do, and this is more towards, as a community, because, and I'm going to go back to my Java roots. We just reached I think we have about 5,000 members. Again, we didn't know we were going to have that much of a following here in our community, but we partnered up with law enforcement, and we met with them and just had candid discussions, like, what can we do to help you? Because we're not going to, yes, you'll see us at crime scenes, and yes, you'll see us, talking to these families and connecting, but what can we do to help the problem? What are you seeing that we can maybe do? Because we've got members that trust us. So how can we help? And one of the things, I'll pull up a little flyer here. Here's our little Java flyer that we hand out at all of our events. And it kind of explains our mission and what our focus is. But then on the back of the flyer is something that we did to partner with law enforcement. So that QR code will take you to our website, and you see the little dude with the magnifying glass down there. We call him Sam, and Sam stands for Send Anonymous Message. That is what we communicate to the schools and anybody that has this flyer. It's also on the back of our business cards. That is a way, because one of the things that law enforcement said was nobody comes forward. We need tips. We need the public to help us solve these cases or help us bring down these drug houses, but nobody is giving information. Well, here's an anonymous way that those messages will hit a specific inbox that was created just for us, and it mass messages members of the homicide unit, the drug task force, the gang unit here locally. And depending on what the tip entails, that particular department or division of law enforcement goes and follows up on those leads. And I think that's huge because, we have other ways of submitting tips and information to law enforcement, but I think our members trust us. And I think that it goes a long way, especially if you can QR code this, if you can get right to our website and submit a tip. We have gotten some feedback from law enforcement, and tips are coming in, arrests are being made, and it's all thanks to this little tool. So I would say in your own community, you won't have a JAVA because that is a local homegrown group that we started. But if you're experiencing similar stories as what we have experienced here in our community, start a group. I tell parents all the time that come to our rally and they'll say, man, I really wish my city had something. I wish somebody would do something. And my first response is, you're somebody. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just one person that shows up to your rally, have a rally, start talking about it. You will be amazed at how many people like you are out there wishing somebody was out there talking about it.
That is huge. That's beautiful right there. And even the mere fact that Sam, Send Anonymous, like that was not even in existence until you guys started asking the question of what can we do? What can what can be done? And what progress.
Yeah.
Progress. That's true progress. That's not settling. That's not just saying it's the way that it is and that's the way it's going to be. And thank you for sharing about Chris and taking that pain that you've endured and that you still live with every single day. You will carry it every single day, but to see how far you've come in pushing through that and making it count for something. Yeah. That's what this whole thing is all about.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say thanks for sharing your story. And for those that are tuning in, this is actually going to air again during the Streamathon. I know that you weren't available this coming weekend to be able to be there live. So this is going to hit there 2 times because people needed to hear that tonight, and they will see it again during the Streamathon. So I just want you to know that I love you and I pray for you. And I'm always here cheering you on and just kind of watching the journey unfold because God is using you in a mighty way.
I have even my shirt that I have on today. It says, God is, well, I can't read it upside down. God within her, she will not fall. And that can't be a more true statement, because without faith, that is what's gotten me through. Faith and community. Everybody needs somebody to talk to and be candid, have those transparent conversations with. But you also need whatever higher power you believe in. You cannot do this alone.
Amen on that one. Amen on that one. Faith and community. Much love to you, my friend. And we'll talk soon. Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.